In this video, I'll tell you why I'm obsessed with propeller arcs, and maybe you should be too. So when we photograph airplanes, one of the things that people forget to do sometimes is to actually make them look like they're flying. Propeller airplanes especially have a sense of motion when you can capture a propeller arc. If you take a picture on full auto settings with a DSLR camera, it's going to probably try to expose for the daylight if you're outside shooting during the day, and chances are you're going to get a very still or nearly totally still propeller arc. That just makes it look like it's an airplane hanging on a string that's not even flying. It's kind of suspended in air and it looks fake. In fact, people might think it's a model airplane or an RC airplane if it's really far away. The way you get around that is you basically slow down the shutter speed to the point where you're going to get a full sweep or a full blur of that propeller arc. And that's done in several ways, which I'll tell you how in just a minute. To get a good prop arc, you need to have an understanding of what shutter does to an image, or shutter speed does to an image. Essentially, every time you take a photograph with a DSLR camera, a shutter curtain opens, exposes the sensor, and then closes again. What's going to happen is, while it's open, if something is moving too fast, it'll appear as a blur. This is why when you see people running, the background looks blurry in certain shots, or car racing, background's blurry. Basically, we're going to look for settings that allow us to freeze the action in the airplane in the background, but make that propeller arc blur and look like it's spinning really fast, which we know it is. Shutters are measured in seconds of exposure time. So a shutter speed of 1 would mean that the shutter is open for 1 second and then shut. That's typically way too long for any kind of aviation photography. We're usually dealing in fractions of a second. So a good starting point, all things being equal, 1/100th of a second would be a good starting point. In shutter speed, that means you set it to 1/100 and the shutter curtains are going to open for 100th of a second and then shut again. What you're trying to do is keep the shutter open and sync it with the props so that the propeller appears to travel a full revolution in the time that the sensor is exposed by the shutter. That's the objective. Now, when it comes to propeller arcs, if you completely freeze the prop, it looks like it's just suspended in the air. Terrible. If you get somewhat of an arc, that's usually pretty good. If you get half of a propeller arc, that's even better. And of course, if you can get a full-on 360-degree propeller arc, you've done something amazing, my friend. You've captured what it means to be an aviation photographer. You're probably wondering, well, how do I do that? I'll give you some quick guidelines and tips, and these are just starting points. A lot of things can vary, but here's just a general rule of thumb. If you are shooting a plane with 2 propeller blades, 1/160th is a good place to start. 3 blades, you're going to move that up to 1/90th or 1/90 shutter speed. That should start to give you a very nice definition. If you've got a 4-bladed prop, you're probably either shooting a warbird or maybe some kind of turboprop airplane. That's going to be 1/125th as your starting point. For 5 blades, you want to do 1/160th. That's a good starting point. 5 blades, usually like your high-end turboprops, your high-end warbirds, very fast airplanes. Those are the ones where you're going to be at 1/160th. Remember, these are just references. It depends on the throttle speed, the throttle setting the pilot has, the phase of flight, takeoff, taxiing, landing, cruise, is what's going to dictate where you go with your shutter speeds. Again, these are just recommended settings. You want to go up or down depending on what's going on. Best thing to do is take a few shots, look, take a few shots, look. Air shows are great practice for this because as each airplane makes a pass, you can kind of track them, get some shots. While they're flying around, coming back for another pass, you can kind of review on your viewfinder the shots that you got and kind of adjust from there. Sometimes even having the best shutter setting for the specific situation still isn't going to be enough. So things that can affect the prop arc showing up or not showing up are, for example, the position of your light source, which is the sun. One of the things I like to do when I direct air-to-air shoots is have the photo ship and the aircraft fly not directly at the sun, but off about 30 degrees to the sun. So in this example, if you were the sun, the camera was the sun, this was the photo ship, this is the target airplane, we'd want to fly this way so that the target airplane is getting hit by the sunlight. I'm taking the pictures this way and I'm going to see that propeller arc. That helps immensely. If we were to fly this way, then you can see that the sun is going to cast the shadow from the photo ship onto the target airplane. May not seem like a lot, but typically we're flying pretty close to where that can become a factor. If you're at an air show on the ground, try to position yourself where the airplanes are making a pass and the sun is kind of hitting the propeller arc. Sometimes just because of the time of day or where you are, it's not possible, but if you have the option to do that, by all means do so. You'll start to notice the critical role that the sunlight plays in not just the propeller arc, but the overall lighting on the aircraft. When you see a photograph that has a really nice propeller arc, kind of comment and let the photographer know they went through a lot of work to get that shot. It means a lot to us when you say, hey, great shot, looks good, anything you want to say. And now that you've seen this video, hopefully every time you look at a picture of an airplane with propellers, you're going to look for that sometimes elusive 360-degree arc. It's kind of a thing for me. Every shoot I do with airplanes that have propellers, I'm trying to get that 360. Sometimes the lighting isn't right, you can't see it. But when you do get that 360-degree arc, man, there's just something else like it in photography. I could be biased. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you learned something today about propeller arcs. Please like and subscribe, helps me out a lot. I'll keep making tutorial videos like this and of course, taking pictures of airplanes. Until next time, see you later.